Hey, Alain, thank you for coming in. I mean, you're just a marvelous background of servant leadership, contribution, impact, you name it. You're also a tremendous businessman, investor. You're in healthcare. No matter which way you sort of spin this or mind it, you've been a star, a superstar. And also within the YPO community, it's quite private, but you're top leader within that community for decades. So thank you for coming in and sharing your experiences with my audience.
Well, thank you, Stephen, and it's a pleasure to be here. I think you're quite generous in the way you introduced me. I have done my share in business and in philanthropy, but I would not call myself a superstar. But I'm happy that you think of me that way.
So, Lon, we did a prior interview, but it was so many years ago. If you can maybe compress just sort of your career, your formative career, and the different aspects of it, because you're in healthcare and you were in retail and you were in telecom and you're an investor, and as you can summarize some of that but not in 10 minutes, maybe in about 3 minutes, and then maybe spend another couple of minutes on YPO and your journey there. And then we'll get into, the Knowledge Impact Network and the Knowledge Pledge community and then where that is going. But what I'll do is, so it's not one 10-minute piece, I'll prompt you. So first of all, just on the business side, like your college years to forming your own companies and the different companies that you've been part of. And then I'll prompt you then for the second part, um, which is your YPO journey, and then we'll go into the impact side specifically.
That works for me. Thank you. And so, just briefly on the business side, I started in the fashion industry, and I had early successes in retailing, in manufacturing, in wholesaling, in franchising. I created the first Hugo Boss retail concept in the world back in 1986. That became quite successful, as many of us probably know, because it became worldwide, and it was the model that I started. Beyond that, I created other companies that were not really related in terms of their industries, but there was a common thread. The common thread is that they were it engaged my sense of developing, of creating. That's where I really thrive and I enjoy, is building from scratch and building ideas. So I built a hedge fund at some point. I had a technology company that in 96, when the Telecom Act of 96 was passed in the United States, created a company there that was funded by Vivendi and eventually moved on. So there was a series. I did some investment banking, of course, along the way. And then I created the laboratory services company that you referred to, which is still standing. I sold it in 2017. And I am still a board member, chairman emeritus, and a minority shareholder at this point.
So that's, again, a remarkable journey. From an education standpoint, did you study in the sciences or was it business or some combination or just bootstrapped it all?
Well, bootstrapped is a good way of thinking of how I carried my career. But from education, I went to university and took courses, did not graduate. And then I studied the business very early because I had a very early opportunity that was, it's too long of a story, but I made some real quick money very quickly on one particular transaction. And I bought a store with those funds. That's really what I did. And then I found myself owning a retail store, and that was not part of anyone's master plan, just happened very quickly. And from that, I built a whole 20 years career in the fashion industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's legendary. In essence, you're a pioneer and iconic in the fashion industry, but also in telecom, as you mentioned, and finance as well with the hedge fund and things like that. And then, investment banking. And then, of course, you got into different aspects of healthcare and you still have, or you're still connected with LabConnect. And in fact, I interviewed your new CEO, right?
You did.
So, okay, now that's just a tremendous journey of success. And very early on, then you joined this marvelous organization called YPO. So can you give just a quick snapshot of who YPO is and then your journey in YPO?
Yeah, well, I'll start with YPO. YPO has about 39,000 members worldwide in about 150 countries and employs about 20 some million people. The member companies employ 20 million people or so. If the revenue of the aggregate of the member companies was to be aggregated, it would be the third largest economy in the world. It's a pretty significant organization. I joined it in 1990, so 36 years. I have gotten. I was invited to some leadership roles early on that eventually grew into larger roles within the organization too. Having been the global chair of YPO Gold, what we call YPO Gold, I was the finance chair, and I created within YPO something that was not really in the radar. It was something related to impact, where it was at a leadership conference in Singapore where I realized that there were 2,000 members in the room, and at the end of that, we had a board meeting. At the board meeting, I said, well, we have all the members here, so many members here. And within the membership, there are people doing great things around the world that could inspire others and create a multiplier effect. We just don't know that about them. We need to go and dig into that. And then I was given the go-ahead. A number of board members came to me and said, love to work with you on it. And then off we went. For about 8 or 9 years, I was the chair of that initiative. And then in 2020, I created something called the Knowledge Impact Network, which is, it happened when I happened to be in Davos for YPO when we were honoring the cohort, the 1999 cohort of leaders who were going to potentially get an award for the impact. And as I was walking around, I realized that there were so many interesting people that were not YPO members that just could not make the cut at the right time because we have in YPO an age requirement, a title requirement, and things like that. So if they didn't make the cut, but they were still amazing people, I figured we need to start combining the energy of some of the people who are not inside YPO with the energy of YPO members to create even a greater multiplier effect that way. And that became the Knowledge Impact Network. It was not an initiative of YPO. And then only about 2 years ago, or less than that, YPO created something called the YPO Communities. And I was invited to look into that and to potentially bring my Knowledge Impact Network into YPO. And essentially, that's what we are doing. We have created within YPO a structure where we'd like to think that we're taking the knowledge YPO members have accumulated over the years and make that available to social initiatives around the world to help them scale. YPO members have amazing attributes that are fairly not unique, but the aggregate is quite unique. Know how to scale, know how to build, know how to solve problems, know how to operate, know how to engage, and they all have amazing connections. And I said, that is an asset class by itself that we can take and repurpose for the benefit of humanity. And that's what the Knowledge Pledge is about.
So what I'm hearing, though, is that you've had this tremendous business success. You joined YPO many, many years ago, 36 years ago. This marvelous community, as you mentioned, 39,000 CEOs, chief executives. In my opinion, it's probably about 12 trillion, sometimes the word 9 trillion, but that's been around for a long, long time. So
That's true.
I estimate about 12 trillion and consider just the community. That's a lot of capability employing over 22 million across 150 countries. You hold a lot of internal events, and you have the conference like Edge, and you rose to be the global chair of YPO Gold International. And then you were finance chair and did all different continuing contributions within this community. But you thought, there's a lot of wellspring of capability, and so you're at the World Economic Forum. You're integrating with all of your colleagues because YPO has a presence there every year, and you think, we can utilize that power that's not just within YPO, but those who are outside of YPO, in fact, may not even know there was a YPO, and yet are having some kind of impact in some way. And if you can converge those into a common community, you can do so much more. And that was the compelling sort of hub for the formation of the Knowledge Impact Network. And then you indicated that YPO a few years ago said, what if we create a sort of an aligned structure called communities, and which maybe has some aspects of more flexibility. And then you decided to embrace that, and that became the Knowledge Pledge community, working with YPO, but the Knowledge Impact Network then being connected to then this Knowledge Pledge community. And you're growing this community. And again, it's leveraging all of the capability that's within YPO, but also people are external to YPO who have chosen their own paths, and maybe they can bring their expertise into the events and different projects that you're managing within the Knowledge Impact Network and then the Knowledge Patch community. Can you describe some of the projects you've been taking on, for example, within the Knowledge Impact Network, and then how expanding that with the Knowledge Pledge community allows you to do other things or more, or maybe gets enhanced in some way?
Well, with the Knowledge Impact Network, we did about 25 projects, and we supported a number of initiatives around the world. One of the dominant one right now that is still a very vibrant and has a whole community of its own, and the whole working groups and experts participating, both YPO and non-YPO working together, has to do with the effect of plastics on human health. And then the more there's discoveries that are being made, lots of solutions that are existent, but they're being suppressed or not being marketed sufficiently to reach the society at large. So we have wonderful people there working, and it's a separate group, and I think there are about 37 people actively involved on regular basis in that group. We have helped a wonderful member, YPO member, introduced to us, and she happens to have invested over the last 10 years a good part of her time to creating water wells with solar powered in villages in Africa, 1,400 villages. And she claims that she has affected 6 million lives. And she came to a point where she needed to figure out the best way to scale, as its philanthropic dollars are, let's say, being less available to her, and how to go about that. So we put together a group of people. We actually met when we had our meeting with her in Manaus, Brazil, at the YPO's Social Impact Network event. And we pulled together some members to help with working on solutions to give her pathways. She claims that somehow, she said, we saved her life. That's not, I think that's an exaggeration, but for sure, I could see, I was in the room, and I could see how much the energy was, and people wanting to give her their connections and introduce her and put together some structures for her. Wonderful. So that's one. The one where we have also engaged, because the effect of AI on society is real, we had an education event where we brought two different schools, schools that focus on primary education and how we should start teaching our children from age 5 going forward, and what the type of education going from what is available now to how what should be what and the opportunities that these new schools are providing. It was really interesting. I think I received some compliments from YPO because we had so many members. We had like over 250 people register for that. That was quite something, and it was it's a good size for a community to attract the size of group that week. And we had a wonderful event, which I was really delighted that you participated in, and you were so engaging the way you brought a panel of people to talk about the future of work and vocations, and how those, with the impact of AI and how those can be addressed. So it's taking current problems and finding the right people to work around them and work on solutions. I know that one of the panelists, Florian, is going forward with the work he's doing and developing potentially a business around it, or a more of a education. I mean, these are just but a few examples. The pipeline for the fall is robust. We are actually creating right now, co-creating within university in the UK, a program for the invisible women, and to bring women of early university age to have entrepreneurship skills in an 8-week program. And so it's being piloted under one university in London. And then from there, we have a scaling model for it to affect, I don't know, lots and lots of lives of women in universities. Probably men will be included, that's, of course, at some point. But right now it's designed as a woman issue. And those kinds of things, we are invited to co-host an event in Africa to relative to the identity of people who lose their identity and what happens to them. The 1.5 million people, 1 billion people with the migration issues and identity issues, and how does that get addressed and solved? And so we are likely to move forward on that with that as well. So there's the initiatives come our way. We have a panel. We have a great team of YPO members who are our own we call it our executive committee, but we filter everything through that same group, and so we are approving several projects, and fall is already fairly committed, and then we're building on from that.
It's really interesting. You talked about this entrepreneurship program for women, and you've got a university or college interested. That's something you definitely could talk to Giannis about as well, the current president of ACM, but he's doing a lot in Europe, and he's got quite a great profile. That would be a natural fit for IEEE. IEEE actually has quite a robust entrepreneurship program worldwide, and they hold all of these summits, but a natural element to grow that would be because IEEE is actually connected to every major university in the world. So maybe working in conjunction with you on launching these women programs in the different colleges and universities around the world. I'm just kind of, and they also have a presence in the global majority as well. In other words, in different parts of the world where a lot of underserved communities. So that could be a reach. I'm just thinking of the CEO Leadership Alliance. You had a discussion many, many years ago with them. I'm thinking that this could be something that they would be interested in taking on. They've grown considerably. They have something called the National Talent Collaborative, which has grown to be something like 33 leadership groups around the U.S. Talent enablement, things like that is an important part, particularly to underserved communities. They're definitely working with colleges and universities. They've got employers involved, of course, because the companies connect us to foster talent, but entrepreneurship would be a natural sort of aligned area that I'm thinking. So these are really tremendous programs that could have uh, contribute to serving underserved communities, but also help in enabling economic growth in different regions of the world and to underserved communities as well. Do you have other related programs, other sort of organizations you're working with that you think are really interesting you want to talk about?
Well, yes, we're building on a partnership with the XPRIZE to design challenges and to include YPO community into it. Very excited about that. There are opportunities there. We have made some commitments about the number of events and situations that we would be part of. So there is I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us. So it's a brand association as well as the kind of continuing on the same mission to take YPO knowledge and making it available to where it can be best utilized. Yeah. One of the other things that I'd like to mention is that we're also putting a lot of effort into developing a technology to capture all the effort that's being made in relation to impact, and to eventually, I don't know how many years from now, it should become, in my mind, the driver that attracts new members into YPO, because YPO members have donated to make the world better in so many ways, in so many hours, and so many accomplishments that could be a driver. Young members, prospective members, they're in their late 20s to mid 30s or so. That's the typical range of, let's call it, to 40 age range where people come in. And yeah, they're in the middle of building businesses and, families and all. To let them know early that there is this pathway to impact that exists within YPO, I think probably brings peace to a lot of people's mind. And what I hear from time to time, and more often than not, is that how do I get engaged? People ask, what do I do? How do I know that it's my time? How do I know that I should be, starting to look at what I'm calling the second ledger? The first ledger we all get involved with is the EBITDA and revenue and ROI and things like that. And that's building and scaling and developing businesses. That is great. It's satisfying. It's lots of value in there. But there's, in the parallel, I'm saying there is a quiet other ledger that exists. It's the second ledger. And we have to eventually recognize, at some point, all of us get to a point where we recognize there's a second ledger that relates to what are we doing for the rest of the world? What impact are we leaving behind? What is the value? What are our values that we want to impart on society, on our families, on our children? All that's what I'm calling the second ledger. That second ledger exists. We just don't activate it at the same time, all of us. So I want to make it easy for people who want to activate the second ledger to come in and be at some point just actively watching or viewing, and at some point engaging and donating time and energy and participating. Because knowledge is something we all have. It just needs to be repurposed in a way that can make a advance another solution to a problem. And the world is not lacking problems to solve. It's lacking individuals who are willing to, get involved and solve them.
So let's say there's people out there and they see the interview and or in essence, it's like a fireside chat. And they want to engage. How would they do that? How can they start sort of exploring what you're doing? and then put up their hand and say, "Hey, I want to contribute to your work."
Yes. Well, if they're YPO members, they can go to YPO Connect and find the Knowledge Pledge community and join the community there. They will invite them to join our WhatsApp group where there is discussion ongoing. And of course, to reach out to me I'm always happy to engage with everybody, anybody who wants to be involved. And it's simple as Alain Chetrit 1@gmail.com. But for those who are not YPO members, we are inviting everyone to bring their initiatives forward. We'd love to look at them, review them, and put them through our filters, and then see if we can be helpful by pulling together either an awareness program for their initiative or a solutions-oriented program, which we call sprints, to help them. So again, just reach out, and we'll be very happy. We have a onboarding form, and it's still a little bit, I'm going to call it a bit analog, but we're working on the making technology investments to be able to automate a number of these functions so that it's a lot easier for people to engage.
So you indicated there's an onboarding form. To access that onboarding form, can they go to a website to get it, or?
Not the Knowledge Pledge. The YPO Knowledge Pledge community does not have its dedicated website. It is within the YPO Connect behind that wall. And so for YPO members, it's easy for them to go into Connect and then look up the Knowledge Pledge community and easily get onto our community page. And there's lots of information there. That's the behind the wall. But on this side of the wall, there is not a website. We're working on that. Let me just say we're working, but the fact that we decided to not only have a brochureware out there, to also have the onboarding and the measurement and everything. So it's taking longer to develop, and we have a team working on that. We should be ready with that in a short while. Meanwhile, for those who are not YPO members who want to get involved, reach out to me. We'll make it happen.
No, but you still have a presence with your Knowledge Impact Network, right? So they can.
Correct. Absolutely. And I did not mention that. So under the Knowledge Impact Network, there's a website, knowledgeimpactnetwork.org. That website will give you a great indication of everything that we've done. But the Knowledge Pledge community is the YPO thing. So you can get information, of course, by looking at the Knowledge Pledge community, knowledgeimpactnetwork.org, and reach out to me. Yeah, both.
So, you're unlocking all of this capability that's in people. And as you indicated, that people have to migrate into or realize there's this other ledger, and the other ledger is about service, right? And what are the sort of more profound ways of impacting through services, through knowledge, the capability, wisdom, experience, connections, and networks, right? And there's a multiplier effect in combining all of those elements and then working together on projects. And that's what you're doing, right? You're gelling all of the capability, experiences, the wisdom, the networks that people have, and bringing them to bear on problems that need to be addressed in the world. And so you're interested in partnerships, right? So what kind of partnership organizations are you interested in?
Yeah, before I answer that, I want to say that you have been an inspiration for me, Stephen. Just the way you engage and you dedicated so much of your life and energy towards impact and donating your time to so many causes. So that is just wonderful. So I've been observing your style as well, and the organizations to partner with for us would be organizations that have initiatives that we can help. We're looking to have the experience coming from YPO and the initiatives coming from outside YPO as well as YPO, but outside of YPO is important. So who would that be? That would be, you know, whether the World Food Program with Bernard Koach and we're discussing, but the World Food Program initiatives we look at and we contribute some of our time, and we've done several initiatives with them, and we're looking at some future engagement. We're migration issues, education organizations that can bring where we can take the YPO knowledge again and make it available. So and global, and so Africa Connects is one thing that we're had a little communication with this morning to be helpful there with an event that they want to do in Rwanda. But so, yeah, it's organizations that have initiatives and dedicated either managing directors or founders or of those initiatives who are honestly and as looking for have real world problems that we can help them with.
There's communities that don't necessarily have problems, but they're addressing, segments in the marketplace. I'm just thinking of, for example, the Computer Science Teachers Association, and they represent K to 12, and they definitely serve underserved communities in different communities around the world where they're trying to address education, and particularly STEM education. I don't know, would that be a fit at all? Because they're not really problem. They're an existing organization, and then what they're doing is they're trying to serve the global community on K to 12 STEM education, making sure that those abilities and that kind of education is in step with the changes that are occurring. So they would be interested in maybe perhaps a joint event or something like that, right?
Right, and we when we say problems, everyone has their a concern, something to help them scale, some ideas to grow cross country, cross border, or franchising, or it's not necessarily a problem. It's like business growth ideas also that they might be looking for. Oftentimes people talk about fundraising, but that's not our specialty. But so, yes, I mean, organizations that have their heart in the right place for us to have communication with and to be able to do some things together. We're definitely open to that. And the K-12 is a topic that keeps recurring since we did that event, like I mentioned, with the primary education pathways and the two schools that debated on our platform. Since then, we've had a number of ongoing engagement around the K-12 prospects. So yes, that is an area. Education is important.
There's this soft power organization, it's the Garibay Institute. Have you talked to Fernando Garibay at all? Or I think there was
I know his name. I've seen him, seen the name, but I don't think I have.
Yeah, Fernando Garibay is a music producer. I would consider him a prodigy because he came from modest means, and then was able, just through self motivation and curiosity and learning, train himself to, in essence, be a musician and be quite accomplished and a music producer. And in fact, he was one of the primary producers for Lady Gaga in her sort of rise. And subsequent to that, he has produced pretty much every artist out there. He's still relatively young. He's a polymath. And what I mean by that is has many, many, many different interests. And I think he's going for his third PhD right now. And it's not music. It's not related at all to music, right? So he's one of the first ones to integrate AI machine and things like that into music, or in a productive, creative way, not to replace artists, but to augment and things like that. So, but he created something called the Garibay Institute, which is all about diplomacy and soft power and working with educational institutions and things like that. And I'm thinking that because his reach is global, that you know, having an exploratory meeting may be of some benefit. And he's very execution oriented. The only thing right now, because he's working on multiple PhDs, is sometimes he could be time constrained. But once he's completed those and he's in the tail side of completing those, then and plus he has all of his other areas that and he's working on. But the this Garrity Institute is something I think maybe there's some ability there or connection that could be some benefit to what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the way you describe it sounds like there might be a fit for at least a discussion and see how we can help each other. It is, we have to also talk about how do we actually intend to finance this initiative? It grows. We have to invest in technology, in people, in support, and all that. And what is the model? YPO has its membership dues that YPO members pay in order to be part of the YPO organization. So they've already done their part in contributing capital to YPO, not to us directly, but there may be some. But then we are looking at some ways to engage sponsors who might find it compelling to support a particular initiative or track, education track, or a very specific initiative. And we're working on developing that model so that way we can secure ongoing revenue models. And then, of course, go from that to events. Events will yield a little bit of revenue for us to support the demand of time that it requires, not for me, but for individuals will hire to support all this. So I say that in the context of these partnerships and organizations, we will let them know, of course, of our opportunities for engagement with the entire YPO community through the sponsorship that we might make available in the next month or two.
On the sponsorship, I mean, there's different kinds of sponsorships. So you can have sort of organizational sponsorship, so sponsorship of the YPO Knowledge Pledge community overall. And then there could be in-kind sponsorship. So let's say Google or one of the hyperscalers says, you know what, we are willing to provide access to our capabilities, maybe through donated time or through access to resources and technology. That could be another kind of sponsorship. There could be project-based sponsorship, a particular project that's growing and scaling in some way, and you need some support for that. And that brand, that sponsor could be associated with a very positive project that you're doing. And then, as you mentioned, there could be events. And for the events, you could charge some kind of modest fee, a sponsor for the event itself. So the branding gets associated for the event. But the event could charge. In fact, AI for Good is now charging. If you want to attend that conference, you have to pay a fee now, whereas it was free before. So they're getting more into the sustainability model, so you're not so much dependent on sponsors anymore, things like that. So are you looking at all of those elements, or?
Yes, pretty much so. And it goes from sponsoring the KPC to sponsoring events or to sponsoring initiatives separately in individual initiatives. So yes, you articulated it very well, and that's so we don't have a lot of experience ourselves into sort of going out with the sponsorship, but we're developing the skills and inviting YPO members to help us with that too as well. And any advice we can get from you would be also quite important.
If you could, by connecting to one of the existing societies and organizations out there who already have events, in other words, they're well established, they have sponsor programs and things like that. Maybe by partnering with them, then you can also partner in some of the revenue that's generated, right? So, because you're bringing value to the events. The advantage there is then there's already an existing engine that you can mine, and you don't have to create from or bootstrap it from the beginning. You're going into an existing system, but you're adding another component that they may not have access to. In fact, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have access to it. And that is you're bringing this whole YPO capability through the Knowledge Pledge community program and adding that as a component to an existing program. And therefore, sort of co-sharing some of the upside of those events. It's interesting. I did a web summit recently, and the ticket price for the top, the premium ticket price was 38,000. I mean, I was thinking, wow, that's it. I mean, they range, right? You can get a ticket for something like under 1,000. You can get for something like 1,800, and then they had this premium ticket that you could get for roughly about 38,000. And I was saying, wow, that's a nice business model. Plus, they had sponsors, right? So, maybe.
Well, I don't know if we can command these kind of prices, but I aspire to be of the type of events that we create and the outcomes that we create, the initiatives that we embark on that create solutions become important enough in contribution to the solving world problems, so that when we have an event and we charge $38,000, people would be delighted to come because they know that they're supporting something that has provided some results. And that is one of the investments we're making in the technology, is how we expect people going forward. Sustainability will be measured. We can't just claim it. You got to have some measurement that can be supported. So the mechanism to capture everything that goes on within the sphere that we've embarked on here, so that it can be measured and quantified and be reasonable enough for a sponsor or attendee or whatnot to see that there is an outcome here. It's not about more conversations. It's a lot about how do we find solutions to problems and measure it. So that's why it's taking us a little while to have the back end of our online presence available.
So it sounds like you're working on a technical side or technology element of the Knowledge Pledge community, which can, perhaps there's AI in there or something that can help find the patterns, make sense of all the data that's coming in, and then find the value, the different sort of value points that you can measure, like a scorecard. So you could say, we did this event and these are the measurable impacts and that it's had, or this is how it's congealed in some way to advance particular metrics in some way, and then you can continually upgrade those metrics to show and demonstrate impact, right? Measurable impact.
That's the idea. It's advancing. The developers have showed me about 190 pages of whether it's inputs or outcomes and things like that they're working on, and it looks promising. But it would, of course, again, love if you are aware of similar projects we should look at, so we can get the inspiration from, or I'd love to send you a beta when we are ready with that, so you can take a quick look. I know your time is mostly committed, but so it should be getting your reaction to it would be really invaluable to us.
Yeah, in fact, Microsoft just had their Build conference this past week, and they showcased Microsoft Foundry, which is all of their AI capability. Within that AI capability now, and now I'm not referencing or speaking on behalf of Microsoft, but I'm just looking at the influencers who covered the events. So from the influencers who covered the events that occurred at Microsoft Build, they're saying that they have a autopilot capability coming out, and there's an AI that you can just launch, and it does all sorts of orchestration for you. It has multi-agent capability. It has the ability to work on projects on the background and do things for you automatically, so you can automate that whole process. And there's a segment that's working on this automation kind of based on open cloud, this thing that came out last year and it kind of excited a lot of people. And then NVIDIA has come up with Scandinavian Cloud, but they've looked at that and saying, can we take that orchestration kind of capability and add that and make it consumer friendly and available to other people? So what that means then is that what you're trying to do and are doing, you could fully automate. And Dario from Anthropic has even come out and says that he's thinking even this year you could have one person running a unicorn, a unicorn being $1 billion company, and the AI does the rest, right? But so from the influencers, and I recommend the audience look at the influencers covered the Build conference. It looks like there's a lot of automation capability, autopilot automation capability. So not just a co-pilot, but something that fully automates in the background, and you just give it information and steer it, it can do the rest. So that you'll be to do this year. And you won't need any kind of coding and things like that. This thing just works for you, right? So, and that's growing in capabilities. So,
Well, I
so
know that
exciting times. Yeah.
I know that our team that happens to be in Switzerland, in fact, is doing some very, of course, quite embedded with the AI in how they approach things and all. But they're we keep having ideas and we keep adding, and so. But yes, and I'm always surprised we send back all pages of comments, and within the next day we have everything is done. so so we know that it's a lot of AI is in the back end getting things done.
Okay, so give me the ideal reality now, kind of this idea from Stephen Heck to non-flict. What's the ideal reality for you in 2 years or in a year and a half's time of where you want to see the Knowledge Pledge community? What is that going to look like?
That the Knowledge Pledge community has in place a revenue model, a succession plan, a leadership team that's volunteers from YPO, and the hired people who come in who get the work done as well. So if we have that within 2 years, that would be great satisfaction. In the meantime, we have a good technology platform that is automates and simplifies the work, and and that we are working to our capacity, meaning that the onboarding new projects, we do as many as we can handle, that we're not rolling our thumbs. And just by the looks of it, without too much publicity or anything like that, we have a calendar full of events, and demand is higher than what our capacity is. So increasing capacity would be a good thing. So hopefully technology will help us increase capacity so that way we can do more. That would be a good 2-year plan.
Okay, so this is the final questions. What would be your recommendations to the audience, and what questions you want to leave the audience? Questions that the audience can ponder.
Well, don't know what the audience age bracket is or where they are in their careers, but I would ask, if you stopped working tomorrow, who would you be? That would be a question to consider. Meaning, from that question should engender the thought about when do I start meshing or involving, contributing to society rather than just accumulation. So there's accumulation phase in life, but the contributions have to begin at some point. Some people do it late, others do it, but I'm suggesting to think about who are you if you stopped working, and we identify with our work and all that, but then take that away, and is there something left? And I think the meaning of life comes from that. And if people can ponder about what their fulfillment and meaning comes from, it would not come necessarily from accumulation. There's a point in time, of course, when we have to focus on that and make sure we are covered and our family is in good standing, but that we have enough time to give back and to make that available. So whether you engage in an initiative and you want to bring it into KPC for us to see if we can help you scale it, grow it, and all that, that would be wonderful.
So it's both a question and a challenge, right? So you know, it's about serving an ultimate purpose, right? Which is greater than oneself, and serving the needs of the broader Earth ecosystems, and to benefit humanity in general in a expansive state. And it can be through a variety of means, but it starts with agency and identity, and saying, how can I use the capabilities that I have to advance in a positive way and for positive outcomes? And here we have the YPO Knowledge Pledge community as a vehicle for that. And you're creating an instrument that individuals can employ to further their impact in a profound way. So it's a recommendation, but it's a question, and you provided a tool, a vehicle, or an expression of that question that one asks. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's very well said, and thank you for re-articulating it the way you did. I just say that having been in YPO all these years, there came a time when I said to myself, we're doing this. We're going to education event and learning from each other, peer-to-peer, ongoing, all these events that YPO makes available. All of that you do, and you absorb, and you're a sponge, and you're learning from every opportunity you have, and you grow, and you become, and you ask yourself, what is that for? What do you do with that? I mean, what is it for? And for me, the answer is not to drink better wines and to drive better cars and things. It's not for that. You got to do more with that. So there is a responsibility that comes with privilege. So, those who have had the privilege of having a better life or better time in life or involvement in different ways and growth, there comes a time when there is an obligation almost and a responsibility to find ways to get involved in things that still stimulate, because it's not about less ambition. It's really about a greater ambition, so when one goes to that track. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, really amplifying your passion for the greater cause, right? And ultimately for this service to the world and to humanity in some way, right? So, and the Knowledge Pledge community is such an ideal vehicle for that, and for the manifestation of that dream, and to make it reality by executing. Alain, thank you for coming in and sharing your experiences, your wisdom, and your profound thinking to my global audience.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.